With smartphones getting more and more expensive, people are looking for other alternatives, myself included. I've never actually bought a flagship phone at flagship prices. That has always been a little bit too much for me to afford. So I have often chosen phones that are either, last year's flagship or maybe not flagship, but, good enough. My focus for phones has always been cameras, so that leaves a bit of a problem. Flagship phones tend to have the best cameras, but I don't want to pay for flagships. So what do I do? Well, just in general, I tend to buy last year's flagships, or something like that. I'm never happy with just one smartphone. I'm always of the opinion that people should have a backup when it comes to their smartphone. It's a tool I use so much that when it's down, I have a problem. And this actually happened to me. I had a phone where ironically, the camera, it would no longer autofocus. So I wanted to bring it in for service, but what am I going to do without a phone? So fortunately, I had a backup. Up until very recently, this has been my backup phone. So this is the Nokia 8. The original Nokia 8. Nokia, that is a name many of you probably haven't heard of in a while. They're still around. They're not exactly the same company. Basically what happened is the original Nokia was split up into two, and the original Nokia stayed with the infrastructure side, so they make cell sites and things like that. On the consumer side, the phones, which everybody remembers, Nokia phones, actually branched off to, I believe it's a Chinese company called HLD, if I remember correctly. They bought the rights to the Nokia brand, and they've been developing phones. And at a time, this was the flagship of the Nokia line, the Nokia 8. It is a Snapdragon 835 based phone. So to many of you, that sounds ancient, but you know what? Its performance is still really good. So my main phone is an 845 based phone. I'm very happy with its performance. I've seen no reason to upgrade. The jump from the 820 or 821 to 835 was huge, and that's what this phone has, the 835. And the best part, being a former flagship from a few years ago, a couple years ago now I think, is it's very affordable. This phone, you can usually get it for maybe $150, and that's a steal, honestly. The build quality on this phone is what you would expect of a flagship. It feels really nice. It has the metal case. It's really, really nice. So as you can see, it's not the most modern phone. It does have a 1440p display. It is LCD based. I will admit that. It's really nice. It does have big bezels. Wah. I don't understand this like crazy I hate bezels stuff. I don't mind bezels. Like, who cares? It has actual buttons, which is something people have probably forgotten existed at a point. And the middle button, which doubles as the fingerprint reader, is the home. I guess I'll start with that. So the fingerprint reader on here, it's front-facing. I personally prefer rear-facing fingerprint readers simply because when I pick up a phone, it just naturally, my finger tends to rest on the back, so it unlocks. Front, I can understand people liking the front one when the phone is flat on a surface, having to pick it up and go to the fingerprint reader, fine. But personally, I prefer that over pick up the phone, which I do much more often, and then have to go down and touch that, and yeah, fine. But anyways, it works. It's not the best fingerprint reader. I'd say probably 90% of the time it works, but every once in a while it doesn't. So it's not the greatest, but whatever. It's relatively quick, so that's nice. The screen, again, the screen is gorgeous. For LCD, it's one of the best LCD screens I've seen. It's 1440 in resolution, which is great. I love 14. I guess because I'm nearsighted, I can actually get benefit. It looks clearer to me than a 1080p display. So this is the phone. By default, I don't like the default launcher. I prefer launchers with an app drawer, but you can install Nova if you want, or whatever you want, right? Performance of this phone is just fantastic. Like, when, it is an 835, it's not the newest SoC, but oh my, when you click on things, it's just fast. There's not really much to say, Signal quality is great on this phone. I've said this in a prior review that when it comes to cellular quality, the phones are pretty good these days. And this one is decent. It doesn't have the best reception I've ever seen, but it's well up there in the good area. Band support is a problem. So if you live in Europe or other parts of the world, you won't be disappointed by the band support. Where things fall apart a bit is in North America. So North America, we use a lot of weird bands. We have a lot of weird carriers. As a result, a lot of phones, especially phones not necessarily targeting the North American market, such as a Nokia phone, which tends to be targeting the rest of the world, especially Europe, it's missing certain bands. So, for example, in this case, it does have the primary LTE bands that North America tends to use, but it is missing the 700 megahertz bands, which is getting more and more of a problem, honestly. It's gotten to the point where if you don't have a 700 megahertz band phone, there are other options. But anyways, it also is missing some of the bands that are used by some of the smaller carriers. So here in Canada, we have Freedom Mobile. They use band 66. This phone doesn't support that. So if you're using Freedom Mobile or T-Mobile in the United States, this is not the best phone for you. But otherwise, if you're AT&T, or in Canada, if you're using Bell, TELUS, Rogers, or any of their flanker brands, it's decent. For a backup phone, it was more than enough. But, it's something to keep in mind. If LTE data is very important to you, maybe skip this one. That said, if you're mostly in the city, you'll be fine. Most of the time. So, what else is there to say about this phone? It's USB-C, which is fantastic. It has a headphone jack. Oh my god, It is dual SIM. While the phone's just sitting there, you can receive calls on either phone and it will work. If you take a call, then you will lose data on the other SIM. So if you are a person, which actually like me, who has a cheap talk plan on one SIM and a cheap data plan on another SIM, you lose data when on a phone call. So if that's a big problem, then, there aren't that many other options, honestly, but that's something to keep in mind. Finally, the camera, or cameras on this phone. The cameras on this phone are very decent, okay? This is a couple years old. Cameras have gotten better since then. It has an odd assortment of cameras. It has two, okay? So yeah, you have your regular wide angle lens. So all cameras on phones these days, their primary shooter is a wide angle, traditionally the equivalent of, say, 24 or 28 millimeter. The second camera is a black and white, a monochrome camera. So what Nokia has done is, if you look up here, so there's three options. There's color, twin, and mono. So what twin is when you take a photograph, it actually takes it with both lenses, both the color and the black and white. And the result, it takes those two images and combines them. So the black and white image, being a monochromatic sensor, doesn't have the filter array, the color filter array in front of it. So it will capture more detail, actually. So by combining that with the color sensor, you get a higher detail photograph. Now, that's the theory. In practice, here are some pictures. So here's an example of the Nokia 8 in default, which is in twin mode versus the LG V35. As you can see, the LG V35 is a little more saturated, the reds. It's a little unnatural, actually. Here, the Nokia 8 does a better job on that. The color balance is a little cooler, which, it's up to you. But detail-wise, I don't really see too much of a difference. If you zoom in on the two, you can see that, yes, the Nokia 8 actually probably has a little bit more detail to it, but it's not a huge amount. Here's an example of twin mode versus black and white mode. I don't really see much of a difference. Just a consequence of human vision. Black and white photos tend to look more detailed or more sharp than color photos. That's just a consequence of humans. So is it sharper? Maybe. It shouldn't really be, but maybe. If we're just going to compare twin mode to color mode, here's a zoomed in image with the Nokia 8. I'm honestly not seeing much difference here, so I don't know. I guess leave it in twin mode if you want, but I don't really see much difference. It's more a gimmick, to be honest. Yeah, so that's, I just wanted to make a quick video. Consider older flagships. They are great values. This phone, even today, if a camera isn't the most important thing to you, if North American band support isn't the most important thing to you, its performance is fantastic. It has large bezels. Oh my god. Is that a thing? I don't know. The build quality is just solid. Like, I don't, the bend test, as another YouTuber likes to do, I don't think you could bend this. It's metal. It's a fantastic feeling phone. It just feels, it's light. It has really good battery life, actually. I highly recommend it. So if you're looking, I don't necessarily recommend this particular phone. This is more an example of, be aware that you don't necessarily have to get the latest flagship. You might be perfectly fine getting last year's flagship or even 2 years old. Phones have gotten so good that at this point, even a couple-year-old phone, most people will be very happy with. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, everyone. Until next time.